In this video, I'm going to show you how to use user attributes to your advantage to create product variations in a very easy way that saves you a lot of time. So I'm going to duplicate this block that we have here for simplicity by clicking this duplicate this block button right here, which is a really nice feature and something good for you to remember because it can save you a lot of time if you want to make slight variations. For example, if I wanted to add pepperoni pizza here in the title and keep this pizza, it would save me a lot of time by just changing that variation and copying it instead of recreating everything. But that's not what I wanted to show you in this video. So what I want to show you is, so let's say that we have a pizza here, right? And obviously with pizza, people can add tons of different toppings. They can add pepperoni, they can add sausage, mushrooms, vegetables, etc. They can add tons of different stuff. So we don't want to make it so that for every different topping and every different variation, we have to create a new block with that type of variation. So instead, for example, like I just showed you, we don't want to have to do it where we type pepperoni here, and then in this block, we type sausage, and then depending on what people do or depending on what toppings people want, we redirect them to that block. That sounds like a pain. Right in this example, it might not seem like it's that bad, but when you create more complex use cases, it can really save you a lot of time, what I'm about to show you. So let's delete this block actually that I just created, and I want to show you what we can do. So welcome to our restaurant. Again, this is the main welcome screen. Assuming people click here on food, which will redirect them here, let's assume that this is just a pizzeria and pizza is all that they sell, right? So let's delete this gallery card because people know that they want pizza already. And here let's type what topping do you want? Now, we're assuming in this case that this is a very boring pizza place and you can only get one topping, okay? So really, I wouldn't delete these buttons right here because those are navigational buttons and you need them. And that's where the persistent menu comes in play as a way for people still to navigate if you want to use different buttons down here. So what we can do is, and yes, we could add buttons that redirect to a block here, but we don't want to do that only because these can't be saved as user attributes. And I'll show you why user attributes are important and why you want them here in a second. So let's create, we have what topping do you want? Let's create 3 variations here. Let's say sausage. And since all of these different options are going to redirect to the same block, we're just going to make one single block, and I'll show you why in a second. So let's just call this block buy pizza, because this will be the screen where they actually can complete the transaction. And let's create another one that says pepperoni. Redirect again to the same block because we're going to be dynamically replacing the information, specifically the topping. I know that might be hard to wrap your head around just yet, but again, wait a little longer and I'll show you. So what topping do you want? Sausage, pepperoni, and let's do mushroom too. And again, redirecting all to the same block, not separate ones, so we don't have to take that time, copy, and change the variations. Cool. So we have these different options. And what we want to do next is actually, let's first go to the block that we just created, the buy pizza block. So let's recreate what we had earlier and go to the desktop, select the pizza cropped version that we resized and make it full scale. Great. So now this is where the cool part comes in. So let's call this pizza. And right here is where we'll put the topping name. We're just going to leave that as a placeholder right now. We'll change it in a second once we actually enable the user attribute. So here's what it'll basically look like when people redirect from the topping that they chose. And let's select buy. Let's create another buy block. And let's say this is $10. Cool. So everything's set up. Ignore the fact that it's prompting us for Stripe payments again because sometimes it does that and it's a glitch. If we go back to the configure tab, when it loads, you will see that Stripe payments are connected. Cool. So let's go back. And so we have the buy set up. So let's go back here to where people select what they want. And what we do here is set up a user attribute. In other words, when a specific user clicks on one of these buttons, it'll save that data and it'll let us use that to our advantage later on when we want to do retargeting, or in the case that I'm about to show you, which is dynamically generating information based on a user's preferences to save us time. So let's enable this user attribute and just call it topping. You can name it whatever you want, but for simplicity, I'm going with topping. Cool. So now whenever, again, anybody gets to this page and they select a topping, it'll save that data associated with their profile in the bot. So now what we can do then is go to buy pizza and we'll replace this topping here. So how we'll do that is you do 2 open brackets and you type in the name of the attribute that you just set. So in this case, topping. Normally, you'll see it generate here in the brown color. It's not appearing right now because we haven't actually gone through and selected one of those buttons ourselves yet, or no other user has selected it. So ChatFuel doesn't recognize it. They say, nobody's done this. It doesn't apply to anybody, so we're not going to generate it. But I'll show you. So we're just going to make a placeholder for now. You see it's brown, but it still didn't automatically generate when we were typing it in. I'll show you why. So if we go back and test this bot, go to food, and let's select mushroom because I'm a vegetarian. So we select that, cool. Now when we go back into the dashboard, let's delete this. And if we type topping again, you'll see it pop up because it actually applies to a user in our bot, specifically us in this case. So now what'll happen, and you actually should have seen it when we tested it here, is you see I selected mushroom and now it replaces the text here with mushroom. So that's awesome because, like I said, it prevents you from having to do all the legwork of changing the names yourself, which could be a pain. Say you have 20 different topping options for pizza. You don't want to have to make 20 different blocks and set all that up. Instead, you simply have all the buttons at the bottom there, set up a user attribute, and then do those open brackets and insert the name of the attribute that you assigned in there, and it'll dynamically generate the content based on what a user did. And the really cool thing too is that when a user selects these attributes, they change. So let's restart the bot again, and I'll show you this time if I select a different topping. Apparently the bot is not restarting, so let me try it manually from here. So let's go back through the sales funnel. So what type of topping do we want? So this time, let's say pepperoni. And now it says pepperoni. So that's really cool because the use cases, say you have a family ordering at a restaurant and they're all using the same phone and they want different things. You want them to have that different content. In other words, you don't always want to have that attribute saved. Now, in some cases you do, but that's more advanced. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll be happy to address them. But in the meantime, let's finish setting up this user attribute. So of course, on the user's end, everything looks great, right? They select a topping, they automatically get that information back. However, you need to do something else on the back end to accurately process these orders. Because right now, you're only going to see this dynamic thing here, this dynamic user attribute, which says topping. You're not actually going to see on the back end when you receive an order what that attribute is. So that's problematic because if you have someone in the kitchen processing these orders, making them, and they see topping instead of pepperoni or mushroom, they're not going to create the right order. So to make this functional on the back end, what you want to do is click on the buy button, extend down to advanced settings, and where it says attributes attached to the order, you want to add that user attribute that you set up. So in this case, topping. So now what'll happen, and let's go back and confirm that it's still there, great. So now what'll happen is when somebody successfully purchases this item, they, on their end, will, yes, see the topping that they selected, but on your end, when you receive this order via email from ChatFuel, you'll also be able to see the attribute attached to that order, not just the user variable that you set up, the user attribute that you set up. So this is great because now the user sees it looking good on their end, they're happy, and you see what they actually selected on your end. So that's how to use user attributes to your advantage to save you time in the bot creation process.